So it was because of his faith in Jesus that he was arrested. And we don't know exactly what he did. But let's just imagine that one day John was going through the city, 90 years old, goes past the temple to Domitian, and he refuses to make obeisance or to bow or to whatever, and somebody saw him. Said, "Oh, arrest that old man. He's not bowing before the god Domitian." Anyway, John was brought to Rome. He was brought before the emperor. He was told to worship him and to renounce Christ, and he refused, and according to extensive records and historical legend and tradition, Domitian sought to execute John by having him thrown into boiling oil. And he survived miraculously. So that kind of scared Domitian, and he thought, okay, I'm just getting rid of this guy. If I can't kill him, I'm going to exile him. And so around the year AD 95, John was sent to the isle, or the island, of Patmos. That's the atmosphere. I want you to get the flavor of it. They're trying to establish a church. John's been faithful to Jesus. He's now in his 90s, probably about 97. And he is put into a ship with a whole bunch of prisoners, murderers, criminals, chained up, brought to the Isle of Patmos. And it's here that he was deposited for his treason. And Patmos was the Alcatraz of the day. It's now very beautiful if you look at the pictures. Just beautiful now, but of the day, it was a horrible place. There were two kinds of prisoners there. There were the dangerous type, the murderers and criminals, but there were also political prisoners. Anyone who had, like John, was a political prisoner, they were often sent there. And it was kind of stripped of a lot of its vegetation. You just had to rummage around and survive as best you could. And it was just a barren and very hostile place. And tradition tells us that John was accompanied by a young man named Prochorus, who would have kind of watched over the elderly gentleman and kind of helped him out. And he voluntarily went with John to the Isle of Patmos. Well, you have to believe that God was leading them, because they did find a cave in the mountain, in the side of the mountain that overlooked the sea. And there's where they were able to take some shelter and kind of, you know, be a little protected from the elements and so forth. Because believe me, they didn't have, you know, all kinds of lovely shelters built for the prisoners there. So that is the place that John was, sitting in this cave. He served Jesus all his life. Now he's been arrested for his faith. The persecution of Christians is resurging again. And you can imagine how it would feel, sitting on this barren island. And it was there that Jesus came to John. And John received the revelation, we call it, of Jesus. Now that word, the Greek word, revelation, is very simple. We all know the word apocalypse. That's the Greek word. It's apocalypsis. Hope I said it right. Apocalypsis. And, you know, apocalyptic, you know, you get all the... It's very, very simple. Apo means away, and calypsis means to veil or cover something. So put the two together, the veil that's covering is taken away. So that's all it means. That's revelation, apocalypsis, or apocalypse. It just simply means that which was covered, that which was veiled, that which we couldn't see because it's of another realm, another dimension, was uncovered and revealed. So John was there in that cave when suddenly he said, I was in the Spirit. And the word, Greek word there means literally, I found myself to be in almost another realm, in another place. I found myself suddenly to be in the Spirit. And I saw. First of all, he heard a voice, and then he saw. And so that's the understanding, that it's like a curtain that covers a plate glass window in your home. You know, a room is very different when you have the curtains closed. But if you have a beautiful view out in your backyard and you open those curtains, all of a sudden it's like a whole nother room, a whole different room. You look out and there's this beautiful view. Well, we have to see that it's like that. He's in this cave in this horrible situation, and all of a sudden he's in another realm. He's having another experience, something that has always been there. It didn't go away. You know, your backyard is still there even when you close the curtains, but now he can see. And God is showing him this world beyond, or this view beyond. And so that's really what it's describing, is that this revelation of Jesus and of what is to come. So it says, he says, I was in the Spirit, and I think it's very interesting in the book of John, the Gospel of John, he never names himself. I'm the disciple. It was the disciple who Jesus loved, the beloved disciple. But here he says, I, John, over and over again. It's me, it's John, it's the one that you've all been coming to. I'm the last remaining apostle, the one who's now 97 years old, and I saw Jesus, I knew him, it's me. So he says, I, John, was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a great voice, and I turned to see the voice. And how interesting that he heard a voice, but he turns to see the voice. To me, this tells me he recognized the voice. You know, as a little kid, you know your mom's voice. You're there in a group of other children, and you hear your name called. Don't have to see who's there, you know. You turn up, it's Mom. She wants me. Whatever, you know, she wants to talk to me. So this is what it was for John. He just heard the voice, and he recognized that voice. So that was one of the things that happened here, is he recognized immediately, it's Jesus. And he turned to see the voice. Because you can't see a voice, right? You can only see the person talking. So he knew it would be Jesus. Well, here was a Jesus very different from the one that John remembered. What a description. Walking in the middle of these lampstands, eyes blazing, a double-edged sword coming out of his mouth, all the bronzed feet, and it kind of can be overwhelming. And I don't want to look at all those details and what they mean, because there are meanings to them. But what I do want you to grasp here is that there were two things that John speaks about that he truly recognized. One was the voice of Jesus. The other was the touch of Jesus. And that's all that mattered to him. It's Jesus. I haven't seen him for, it's now 93, 95 AD. It's been like 60 years since I saw him. It's Jesus. He had a vision of Christ that was so overwhelming, he fell to Jesus in a faint. And the things that he recognized were his voice and his touch. He recognized the touch of Jesus. Jesus placed his hand upon me, it says. He fell in a faint, and Jesus placed his hand upon John. And John knew that touch. It was the same Jesus. It was a gentle touch. It was a caring touch. It was a touch that spoke of the wonderful love the Lord had for John and for all his church. And what did the voice say? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. So John was being entrusted with a revelation to give to the churches and a message to give to the churches. And we have to remember that it was a message of compassion. It's me. It's Jesus. Don't be afraid. John was given the message of Christ coming, and he was given the job of relaying Jesus' specific instructions to the churches. And I think people tend to think that Jesus is coming as the judge, which is true. He is coming as the judge. But what John saw in that cave on that desolate island was that first, Jesus comes as the high priest. He's in a white robe with